Hello, and welcome to Fantasy Wildcard Rewind. I'm back, and I'll be your host this evening. Mum's here to keep an eye on everyone. Unfortunately, we're missing Paul this week, but here I am with Mags, ready to rewind week 14.
I just want to rewind to when we were young and hard. Back to all those good times. Take me back to the start.
I mean, I just can't believe that it's already nearly the end of week 14. Where has this season gone? It's just crazy, isn't it? Now, before we get into week 14 too much, Mags, I missed last week, so I've just got to do a bit more of a rewind to week 13.
Oh,
And
no.
I've got just a fun fact for you, and
Okay.
that is that the Bengals have beaten the Chargers 3 times in this calendar year, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
I mean, I'll let it slide that you said the Chargers there, and you're going to make me say Chiefs, are you?
Oh.
You're gonna is that what you did that on purpose? You said Chargers to make me say Chiefs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've got a division rival. I had to show that. You know.
I mean, yeah, that was it was a great game. The Bengals were just the better team. It was a really nice game. A bit of a weird blip from Travis Kelce, and that's all you need to lose a game in the NFL right now. So yes, congratulations, Hannah. A great victory for the Bengals again.
Thanks, Max. I wasn't quite expecting you to be so gracious in defeat.
Well, I kind of ripped into the Chiefs fans for not being gracious in defeat, so I can't not be now, right?
Felt like you had to. Anyway, how's your week been? Okay.
Yeah, all good. Been enjoying some snow. We were chatting a bit off air there, a little bit about that. It's been nice being out in the snow and enjoying it a little bit. It's not caused too much disruption around where I am as well, so it's got that perfect kind of balance of being nice to look at and not causing any problems. So yeah, it's been a nice week. Enjoyed the games. Been enjoying the World Cup, all the sports that I've been on. It's been great. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's been a good one. The snow actually was a little bit of a challenge for me today to get into London, but it's always good to look at, isn't it? And it still makes you feel wintry and fun. And unfortunately, it has meant that Paul can't make it with us this evening. We will miss him, but
Yes.
Looks like it's just me and you. So let's have a look at what went on in week 14, shall we?
Alrighty.
So should we start with your first prediction then, Max? So
Sure.
you had the Eagles versus the Giants.
Yes.
You did, as usual, very well here. So you predicted an Eagles win, which of course was correct. They did pretty well and won 48-22.
Yeah.
And then you were asked to predict who would have more rushing yards, Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley. It was a quiet one for Barkley this week. So yes, Jalen Hurts was correct. And he rushed for 77 yards versus Saquon's 28 yards. So what did you think of the game, Mags?
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles just kind of crushed the Giants, right? It was never really that close. Saquon Barkley getting injured sort of prior in the week did help. I think he had sort of a reduced workload, but I think after what the Eagles did last week against, was it Derrick Henry and the Titans last week, they just held them off so much, and they didn't allow anything to happen. I thought, well, if the Eagles can hold off him, they can probably hold off Saquon Barkley. So I thought, yeah, they were going to get the job done, and Hurts getting 77 yards, not that shocking anymore for him, right? Which is crazy. I think one of the things I took away from this is last week me and Paul had a little chat about the MVP race. Jalen Hurts has to be in there as well now, right? He's playing so well. That team's got the best record in the NFL, and he's throwing the ball beautifully to, AJ Brown. And I wanted to give a little bit of love to Devonta Smith. He's absolutely brilliant. He must be a nightmare to deal with if you're sort of the number 2 corner on that team, because you're thinking, right, you might have to double team AJ Brown at times, and then it's like he's got to leave Devonta Smith running riot. So he's a really nice player. I really like to watch him play. And one of the weird things about this game is there was like a series of weird punts. So the Giants had like a weird, like the punter dropped it and then like kind of drop kicked it. And then the Eagles had a punt blocked, and then the punter tried to go down and get a first down. Really, really odd series of punts, which I thought was quite a fun little niche to this game. But yeah, I think Paul, might have been right a few weeks ago when he was like, I think we're starting to see the real Giants slump sort of coming. And yeah, I think that might be right. They don't have any weapons really for Daniel Jones to throw to. There's nobody really there. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson was playing all right, but he's kind of injured now. So I'd be a bit worried about the rest of the season for the Giants. They looked kind of a lock-in for a playoff spot. They don't have to win too many more, but I would be slightly concerned that the Giants would actually end up missing out on that playoff spot if they keep going the way they are. So, yeah, not a great time to be a Giants fan. And, yeah, Eagles just flying high, and Jalen Hurts continues to improve every single week. So, yeah, absolutely love to see it. And, yeah, we got a very happy pal, Kev White, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that I agree with what the Giants have kind of where they are now. I think that unfortunately they've kind of reached the ceiling of what they can be. And I think the coaching was so good kind of in the beginning. People weren't quite knowing what to expect, that they could overcome it. Then they've had even more injuries. And I think that's where we've kind of had a bit of an issue. And the schedule isn't going to be the easiest for them. They've got the Commanders coming up, the Vikings, the Colts, but then the Eagles again, week 18. So there's a few kind of teams we'll probably discuss a bit later that are knocking on the door of those kind of playoff spots that I think will overtake the Giants here. And I agree, I don't think they're going to quite make it now, which is a shame because they have played way above their talent level, haven't they?
Absolutely.
So definitely promising for the future, right? I think I would be so happy if I had Daboll as my head coach, because I think he'll just show, I think he's going to take that franchise to new places and hopefully back to their winning ways, which is what they've been waiting for a few years now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you know, Paul ended up with, you know, sad that he's not here because he had the Jets against the Bills, right, Hannah? And he got Bills to win. That was right. And he also guessed that Zonovan Knight was going to get the most yards. And yeah, he got that right as well. That was absolutely brilliant for him. And this is a pretty cool game, I thought, as well. Although, wasn't it like 0-0 at halftime pretty much, right? That is so strange. It almost never happens.
Yeah, I had to note the time because it was like, this is like practically, it was like 27 seconds before. So it took them 29 minutes and 33 seconds to get any points on the board, which is just, like you say, totally crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely mental. And the two kind of big takeaways I have from this on the Jets side is that we talked about it kind of before with the Jets are probably going to go out and get a new quarterback. But I think I said before, it doesn't matter if that offensive line is still as horrendous as it is. We've seen Mike White getting absolutely crushed, had to come off. Joe Flacco, was it Joe Flacco? Somebody come on, got absolutely floored as well. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback there. Like, they're just going to get annihilated if that offensive line doesn't get topped up and doesn't get, you know, severe strengthening. But on the other side of the ball, we got one of our favorite players on the show, certainly one of mine, Sauce Gardner. Do you know that Stephon Diggs only had 37 yards on 3 receptions? That is the lowest he's had all year. Sauce Gardner did a number on. That is amazing for a rookie.
He has been playing phenomenal, hasn't he, really? And I think, you know, not just one of the best like defensive rookies. I mean, surely he's going to be a shoe-in for defensive rookie of the year. But I would say one of the top corners this season, really. The way he's been
absolutely agree. Awesome. Absolutely agree. Sauce is boss, Adam. We don't know that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I thought it was really impressive how Mike White, as you say, took an absolute battering. There was one play where basically 2 players basically cut him in half.
Yeah.
And he went off, obviously, straight after that one. Fair enough. But then he came back in, got battered again, went out, came back in. I mean, he was such a fighter. How he managed to get to the end of the game, I don't know. But I was really impressed with how much kind of strength he's got to go back in there. He must have been hurting like mad. I was really impressed. And although the Bills got the win, I actually thought they didn't really make it look that easy. You know, it wasn't the smooth Bills that we've seen before where they're throwing it all over the park. You know, Alan is running because he wants to, not because he has to, and they just are in control. I don't think they necessarily looked that in control of the game there. They had very few of those big yardage plays. Everything was short, and Alan was having to do loads of scrambling, which I think we've seen already earlier this season. They're trying to stop him scrambling kind of too much this season, kind of it by design. But I think he didn't really have a choice here because there was just nothing in front of him. He had to scramble. So they got the win, but as I said, I don't think it looked that easy. And I think they have been stuttering just a little bit the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not still one of the good teams in the AFC, one of the best probably, but you can just see some holes and some stuttering going on here, and I'll just be interested to see how things go, get going into the playoffs, because beginning of the season, I think we all kind of thought, oh, they're infallible, they can beat anybody, but I think on a bad day they can definitely get beaten here, and I don't think they're as much of a shoe-in for the Super Bowl as maybe we thought after game kind of 1 and 2.
Yeah, and let's not forget what Bills stand for as well, right? Boy, I love losing Super Bowls, right?
It's true. It's true. When you get and lose them all, it's got to be upsetting for them, isn't it? So, Max, let's have a look at your next game, which was the Panthers versus the Seahawks. That sounded like a complete thriller. So you predicted a Seahawks win, which I was surprised that it was incorrect, and the Panthers did manage to scrape a win at 30-24. And you said that Brian Burns would get under 1.5 sacks, and you're actually correct on this one. He got half a sack, so 1 out of 2, which is kind of low on your standards, Mags. Usually expecting 2 out of 2, but you can't win them all, right?
Yeah, I thought the Seahawks winning was one I was locked in on. I was like, that's definitely happening, right? But yeah, they couldn't quite get it done. It was a bit of a weird game because if you look at the stat sheet, you see Sam Darnold throwing for 120 yards and the most receptions a receiver gets is 25 yards. You think, well, the Seahawks must have won that. But no, they didn't. Geno Smith threw for 350 yards. I still lost. But it's just one of those things. I think in the NFL, I don't necessarily think the Panthers played better than the Seahawks. They just ended up scoring more points, if that makes any sense. Sam Darnold looked really good in the first quarter, but it's going to take me a very long time to trust Sam Darnold. We've seen him do this kind of thing before, and then he kind of fizzles out a little bit. The main highlight in this game for me was, did you see the Terrace Marshall? If you've not seen it, guys, watching the Terrace Marshall catch, right? He catches the ball here, and then it tucks in between his legs. He tucks it in between his legs, puts his hand underneath the ball so it doesn't hit the ground, and rolls over about 5 times to make sure the ball does not hit the ground. I mean, that was absolutely a thing of beauty. Nice. So I love it whenever we see Terrace Marshall doing well. But the real thing that actually crushed the Seahawks here was kind of 3 average running backs that the Panthers have, and they just used all 3 really effectively. They had, Chuba Hubbard, who had a really good game. They had Donta Foreman, who's had a really good season. And then they had the young rookie Blackshear, who actually looked the most explosive of the 3 and the sharpest of the 3. So it was kind of death by 1,000 cuts with the running game. And the Seahawks just couldn't stop it. And I think the Seahawks were a little bit hampered because we all know that they want to run the ball first. They're always a run first team. They had nobody to run. They had Travis Homer, and that was it. Not even DJ Dallas was fit for this. So they were kind of forced to be a throw first team, and I think that threw them off a little bit, even though Tyler Lockett had a really good game. DK Metcalf had a pretty good game. Just wasn't quite enough for them. It was a bit of a shame. But I still would be positive if I was a Seahawks fan. Do you think that, Hannah, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're not taking too much away from that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's really great that how well Geno has done this season. I think we've talked about loads, haven't we? But it's nice to think that they potentially have a starting quarterback for the next few years while they figure out what they're going to be doing. Yes. I think the problem they've had more recently is that the defense was terrible at the beginning of the season. Then they started playing actually really quite well, and they went through a period when they're playing really well, and then they've kind of fallen back again a little bit. And I think that's where they're kind of struggling more, is that they're not stopping anybody else getting points. And then obviously we know this week they didn't have much of a running game either. So that kind of hampered them there. But really positive. I mean, we expected them to be absolutely shocking, when we were talking about them pre-season. We were thinking they're going to be terrible. It's just to shove him in because we haven't got anybody else. And it's just amazing what they've managed to do this season. So I would be feeling really positive based on what the expectations were coming into the season, for sure.
Yeah.
So should we have a look at Paul's next game?
Yes, definitely.
I know you'll have definitely watched this, Mags.
Yes.
It was your Chiefs playing the Broncos. Mags did manage to predict that the Chiefs would win and actually get it correct, which is unusual. Usually the team he predicts loses.
Yeah, so I was a little bit worried actually. It
was a bit close, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they managed to win 34-28. Yep. And he also predicted that Russell Wilson would have more sacks than interceptions, and he was correct. I mean, Russell Wilson getting sacked is nothing new. He's been doing it for years, and he had 6 sacks versus only 1 interception. So go on, Mags. We might as well start with you since it was your Chiefs. What did you reckon to the game?
So it was excuse me. It was a little bit of a weird game. Like the scoreline kind of suggests that it was close, but it really was not. It was not close at all. Like I never really felt that the Broncos were going to come back in the game. I always felt like the Chiefs were kind of under control. Just a couple of weird mistakes in there. Maybe the Chiefs never felt the pressure of the Broncos, and there were a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes in there. On the Broncos side, I mean, last week, me and Paul talked about, is Russell Wilson the worst trade ever? At the end of the year, I would really like to do a deep dive into that and just look up, what they gave away to get Russell Wilson and what they're paying Russell Wilson, and compare that to other things. I know the big one everyone always points to is the Herschel Walker trade, which, was in 1989. So I don't know too much about it, but I know the Cowboys were able to turn those picks into, that legacy-defining team. So maybe that is because of the outcome of it. But I think in terms of the sheer value given up, it might actually be Russell Wilson and the amount that they're paying him. So maybe at the end of the year, I could do a deep dive into that and we can have a look and see if he really is that bad. Because he gets sacked 6 times. He wasn't that great again. He ended up having to come out of the game. And, I just don't think the team like him. You hear 2 weeks ago, they were getting absolutely battered by somebody. And, he's on the sideline going, it's Russell Wilson time. It's man, what are you doing? You're so weird, right? He's just an odd cat, and it's not gelling. But it was nice to see Jerry Jeudy have a good game because he's had a bit of a rough season. He's been out injured a little bit. And I think, at least for me, it seems really obvious that he's the real number 1 receiver there ahead of Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton, I've never been a big Courtland Sutton guy. I don't think he's twitchy enough to create any separation. I don't think he's quite athletic enough anymore to get those one-on-one catches. And he's not really had a good year. He's not had a big game like Jerry Jeudy had here. So I think Jeudy should hopefully see most of those targets going forward to help him out a little bit. And yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about that on the Broncos side. In terms of the Chiefs, just kind of business as usual. Kelsey getting a couple of nice grabs in there. Mahomes, a little bit of magic here and there. He did a nice little, one of his nice little underarm throws, but he threw in a little no-look as well, which was lovely. Jerick McKinnon having a really, really big game, which was lovely to see. The best thing about this is, this team, even I, at the start of the year, I said this is going to be kind of a transition year. I wasn't expecting a huge amount from the Chiefs. I thought, we don't really have that dominant wide receiver. We don't really have that dominant running back. It might be a bit of a building year and see what we have. But this team just keeps on winning. And I'm really looking forward already to see if, Andy Reid and Brett Veach are going to maybe move up in the draft and look for a Quentin Johnson or, dare I say, a Bijan Robinson, right? Imagine that. That would be lovely to see going into next year because I still feel the Chiefs are that one big receiver running back away from, the ultimate team. But a nice win against the Broncos, and just business as usual, kind of. What do you think of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think just going back to what you just said, in that it's kind of a transition team, which it is for the Chiefs. Obviously, they had Tyreek Hill there for so long, who was such a dominant wide receiver and a big weapon, and he is now left. But I think that's why ultimately Patrick Mahomes will be the MVP this season.
Yeah.
Because they basically have gone on, like you say, business as usual, despite a massive player from their team, leaving, and replacing him with some kind of average receivers. It's not like they got rid of him and another star came in. They picked up Juju and MVS and a few okay receivers and have managed to do what they've always done. It's as if nothing has changed. So as I say, I think ultimately Mahomes will be MVP this season. But back to what you were saying earlier about Jalen Hurts, I think, like you say, he does have to be in that conversation. So it'll be interesting, but I think Mahomes will get it ultimately. I haven't got too much more to say about this game. I think you broke it down really nicely. I actually did think, though, that this was the best that Wilson had looked this season. This game. I'm not saying he looked good. But I thought he looked the best that he has done. Not that that's particularly difficult. He did have a few nice runs, which I think does make a massive difference to his game. When he can get running, it does make a difference, and he can make more plays. When he's like stuck in the pocket, he just looks old, and he just can't cope, can he? Like you say, I think because they don't really like him, and they've got a first-year head coach who doesn't really know what he's doing. It's just all kind of falling apart. They're stuck with it now.
He can't be there next year, right?
Oh, no.
He's got to be gone.
Surely, I mean, I can't see how he isn't gone. I mean, he's been terrible, and Wilson hasn't helped them, but they're stuck with Wilson now. So he's got to go, right? I totally agree.
What's it called? Is it Black Monday? Is that the name of they have?
Oh, yeah.
After the season ends, It's
going to be him, isn't it? I don't know who else is going to go this season, though. I can't think of many really, really obvious ones.
Well, a lot of the guys are kind of gone already, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Some coaches got some big wins the last few weeks, like people like Brandon Staley, like kind of a little bit worried. So, some coaches have got a couple of big wins. So maybe we could do that as an end of year show. We can make some predictions about coaches that are going to get fired, right? That'd be
who's going to lose their job? Sounds quite harsh, but fun.
Cliff Kingsbury, that's one, right? Cliff Kingsbury, sure. Well, Paul's screaming Cliff Kingsbury at the screen right now, right?
If Paul was here, he'd have been like, Cliff. One last thing from this game. Who even knew that Marlon Mack still existed?
I know.
I thought
it was a great run.
Kind of disappeared off the face of the earth, but no, he did appear back there, so that was quite good fun.
Yeah.
See him doing something. So, I had the Bucks versus the 49ers for my first game. We haven't gone through any of mine yet. So, this is my good one because I predicted a 49ers win and I was correct. They won, amazingly 35-7. Tom Brady, where even were you? And I predicted that Brock Purdy would be the starter and I was correct. As we're going to mention.
Are you sure that was Brock Purdy or was that actually Joe Montana starting? Right?
Oh yeah!
Wow.
He did really well, didn't he? That was kind of my first point. Let's start with him. I thought he played really, really well for Mr. Irrelevant. I thought he looked calm and composed. When pressure was coming, he stepped away and got the ball out on time into his playmakers. I was really, really impressed. Obviously, he did get that interception, which I think was nullified because of some other penalty. So it wasn't like perfect. And I still kind of am reserving judgment a little bit because, as we've seen with a few others, Sam Darnold, Mike White last year, they come out kind of firing on all cylinders and then they kind of drop off a little bit. So if he manages to do this for the rest of the season, I'm 100% in Brock Purdy's corner. I think he is awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm reserving judgment on him a little bit, but I thought he did really great in this game because we know how dominant the Bucks defense can be. You know, they can really make things difficult for you.
Mm-hmm.
He did awesome. He kind of just stepped into the Jimmy role. You know, it didn't look like they simplified anything for him. He just seemed to get in, get on with it. And I thought he looked really great. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does next week anyway. And it seemed to be every time that CMC got hold of the ball, he just seemed to manage to break through the line of scrimmage, even if there was like every single player there. He just found a hole and off he went up the field. It was ridiculous. I couldn't believe how he managed to get as far as he did, like literally every time.
Yeah.
Going on to the Bucks, I mean, I'm shaking my head. I mean, they're just looking, aren't they, looking awful?
Yeah.
And every week I keep thinking they're going to turn it around. They're going to turn it around. It's Brady. You know, these wide receivers, it's not like he's working with a load of rookies like they are over in Green Bay. You know, these are experienced receivers. They know what they're doing, but nothing seems to be clicking. And on both sides of the ball, I just think they look undisciplined. You know, they have some really costly penalties and turnovers. Obviously, the penalty of that one of the tackles who seems to just hold on every single play nullified that TD, and then there was an interception that got nullified as well. And I just think you can't be making these mistakes. You're an experienced team. Like Brady's whole brand is about being disciplined, you know, with your diet and body and everything. I'm just so surprised at how they've kind of just broken down this season. I know Brady has had his mind elsewhere, but I don't know. I've been waiting for this Bucks to turn themselves around, and they just don't seem to be doing it. What do you think of the Bucks at the minute?
I think they're in the same position they were. How many weeks ago was that? 8 weeks ago when I said I think Brady's done. I was just I think it just might be the end of the road for him. He just doesn't look the same. The team doesn't look the same. I still think that Chris Godwin is being terribly underutilized. He is the best receiver on that team this season. When he gets the ball, he looks absolutely electric. He makes big plays, but for whatever reason, he's getting the same amount of targets per game as Julio Jones and Mike Evans are getting. I think Godwin, you need to make him the centerfold there and get him in running those short little routes and get Brady throwing simpler little dinking passes. Kind of how they beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl a few years ago. Just running the slants, running everything really simple, stripping everything back, getting the ball in quick. I think that's what they need. They kind of need a readjustment. I don't know how much has been affected. Obviously, they had a coaching change, but you know the Bruce Arians is kind of still there, but he's not there, right? I don't know how much that has changed and how much harmony is there really between Brady and this organization if it was kind of known that he was the guy that kind of pushed Arians out the door. And then obviously the rest of the stuff going on with Brady. So we don't really know what kind of headspace Tom Brady is in, but it could just be that he's, you know, he's like nearly 50, right? So that's hard.
Do you think he's going to retire at the end of this season?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I couldn't decide whether he's like, right, I'm over it. I can't be bothered standing behind these terrible O-lines anymore. I'm just getting beaten to death and not doing very well. Or whether he's like, I can't finish like this. I need another team. I'm going to go and find a team and try and win it again.
I think he might go to the 49ers and make Trey Lance the fourth best quarterback in that team.
I don't know, you know. I don't know if Shanahan would want him, but I do think there's a few spots. This is another good one for us to talk about before next season or before potentially he goes somewhere as a free agent where we think he might end up.
What? Imagine he goes to Green Bay after Aaron Rodgers retires.
Oh, God, that would be hilarious. But I could see him on the Jets, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Although, don't know if he wants to go back to the cold.
Yeah, maybe not. That's going to be he might just retire. He's got that like multi-million TV deal, right? But they'll push that on to next year, I'm sure, as well. But yeah, I agree with everything from this game. Like, just that 49ers team, they're so good. They are just absolutely electric. I agree with everything. Christian McCaffrey, like CMC, like can't mark Christian, right? No one could get close to him. He was just absolutely amazing. Yeah, Trey Lance, like I said, he's the third best quarterback on that team. Like Brock Purdy. I mean, what did I write? Brock making some Purdy plays. How about that?
Oh, you're full of them, Mags. You're hilarious.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you.
Fabulous dad jokes. I love them.
Yes, thank you. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay, we'll move on then. So let's have a look at our game of the week. So this was one of my predictions. And this week we voted our game of the week to be the Vikings versus the Lions. So do you know what? I was thinking about this before I even mentioned my predictions because they were all wrong. When I listened to the show last week and I listened to you and Paul, as soon as that came up, I was like, I've made a grave error. I know already without even seeing the game that the Lions are going to win and the Vikings are going to have more touchdowns. More turnovers. I was like, I just know I've got it all wrong. And it did play out like that. So my Vikings win prediction was incorrect because the Lions won 34-23. And I predicted the Lions would have the most turnovers. And I was also incorrect because they had none and the Vikings had 2. Now, one of the things that made me think I'm totally wrong here was that, in fact, the Lions have done really well with turnovers over the last few weeks. And I think over the last 5 weeks, they've only had 1 turnover, 1 interception. So I should have thought about that. And to be honest, I was in a bit of a rush last week. I didn't even think. I just picked 2 things out of the air. But if I thought about it properly, it was clear that the Lions weren't going to have the most turnovers because we know how Kirk likes to get. But I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was really good fun. Both teams were marching up and down the field. And I think I love talking about the Lions because they're actually just so much fun this season. I just love talking them. I love watching them. But I think the Lions offense has really found its groove. And Goff is playing really, really well at the moment. And I do think potentially some of the best ball of his career. I think in LA, all of the stuff he was asked to do was reasonably simple, kind of dinking and dunking, whereas he's throwing some really nice deep balls to a lot of the players, as we saw yesterday. So Jameson Williams, welcome to the NFL. Your first ever reception is a touchdown, so that was awesome to see. Obviously he's been off most of the season with his injury, so I bet he was really pleased with that first catch and he was celebrating for ages. But that was good fun. I thought the Vikings were looking to try and get a little bit too cute on some of these plays. So did you see that Cook fumble where he they were in the red zone, they gave him the ball, he did like some stutters, and then they just all leapt on top of him and the ball came out and he got turned over. And I don't know whether he was just trying to find a hole or whether he was looking to do something like throw it or what it was, but it was just a complete disaster. And obviously then they lost the ball. The Lions got it back. I thought this Lions D really is improving as well because we know they've been the worst in the NFL and they're still not fabulous, but they did make some good plays when needed. And our boy Aiden Hutchinson was getting on the score sheet there and just really was affecting the game. I think he really is developing nicely. And it was great to see that because, you know, we're all about Aiden Hutchinson here on this pod.
He's maybe a shout to, if anyone's going to beat Sauce, might be Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sauce has been just so dominant, you know, at his position, you know, not just as a rookie, but for his position that I don't see anyone catching him, to be honest. But yeah, like you say, he would probably be the second place, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
The thing is, I actually don't know what to make of this Vikings team.
They're a mystery.
Yeah, I think they're really weird. Like, they have won loads of close games, which, you know, is impressive because it's difficult to win these close games. But I'm not convinced that they're a true Super Bowl contender. No, I mean, they're certainly a playoff team. But yeah, there's just something about them that makes me hesitant. You know, I look at the Eagles and the Cowboys in the NFC and I think, yeah, they truly could be Super Bowl contenders. But the Vikings, nah, they're all right. But I just don't see it. And I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But I just can't see them being in that upper echelon of the NFC teams.
I think it's their defense. Like
Yeah.
that was their 5th straight game allowing 400 yards or more, which is the worst ever in franchise history. That's why all the games are so close. And maybe it's because they're in lots and lots and lots of close games that you're like, like they don't really blow anybody out, right? So it's kind of like, but you're right. I'm the same as you. I just can't exactly figure out what part of the defense. Is it the secondary? Is it the defensive line? I don't know. I can't put my finger on it.
I'm still not sure about that offense, though. Like, Justin Jefferson obviously is awesome and amazing.
By the way, Justin Jefferson kind of casually going for 223 receiving yards and no one talking about it.
I know.
Like, amazing.
He is totally awesome. But I don't know whether it's just that I say he's underutilized because he obviously wasn't yesterday since he had 223 receiving yards. But I don't know. There's just something about them that it doesn't get me excited. And I suppose you don't have to be exciting to be a playoff and a Super Bowl team. But I don't know. I just think they could be more explosive. And, they've got the ammo to do that. And I think they're a bit kind of pedestrian.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I don't know if that's like the Kirk Cousins effect, right? That's kind of what you get with Kirk Cousins. Like, it is safe, but you're probably not going to win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins, right?
Yeah, don't think so.
I don't think so. But, I mean, I think Justin Jefferson there is obviously the future for them. And it was a weird game. Did you notice the amount of people dropping things in that game? Like, on both sides? People kept dropping the ball. One of my favorite plays there was the Lions did like a fake punt whenever they had no real need to do a fake punt, but they did it anyway, which made it perfect. It was a perfect disguise. So I thought that was really, really nice. And there was another moment in that game. I'm going to see it for my hit rewind moment of the week as well. It was my favorite play from this weekend. I thought it was fantastic.
Suspense.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at our current prediction scoreboard. So I don't like to say it, but actually Paul was the winner this week with 4 correct answers. That's all of his answers correct. I mean, this has got to be the first time ever, right?
I think it actually is the first time. We need to stop giving him the layups, right? We're giving him easy. He's up in the 30s with us both now.
I know. As I was just thinking that he's catching up to us now, so that's it. I'm giving him the really hard ones again now. Max, you were second this week with 3, and I brought up the rear with 2, which is very upsetting. So currently, Mags, you stand at number 1 with 39 points. I'm in second place with 36 points. And somehow Paul has crept into the 30s and is now at 30.
Yeah.
It's a little bit nerve-wracking because I don't want him catching up to me.
No,
so I need to give myself some reasonably good games now coming up to keep ahead.
Let's give Paul all the Vikings games that are always close, right? We'll do that.
Yeah, good point. They've got to lose one soon, right?
Absolutely.
So should we have a look at our hit remind moments of the week?
Yes.
Go on then, Mags, since we've just talked about the game, tell us what's your hit rewind moment.
It's always one of my favorite things whenever a big offensive lineman wheels off the line and is an eligible receiver. It was Penei Sewell for the Lions that was doing that. It looks so humongous when they all stand next to each other. You don't really notice. But whenever you get one of those like massive guys like out in the field on their own, you're just like, holy shit, they're so big. I felt so sorry for it. Whatever the Vikings linebacker was that was close, I was like, oh, don't even try it, mate. But so he ended up doing a little dive at the end as well. It was absolutely a thing of beauty. I would have loved to have seen that. The only thing that would be better than that is if they ever line up Penei Sewell at fullback and let him charge at people. Like the Chiefs used to do that with Dontari Poe, who was like the same kind of build, this huge guy. I want to see Penei Sewell play running back. That's the only thing that would top Penei Sewell playing receiver, but I love that.
Yeah, it was great fun, wasn't it? And I always think they must be scared to death that they're not going to catch the ball. Because, they don't ever do it. They're just slamming into other people. So I'd be like, oh, I hope I catch it. I had a few this week, actually. And since Paul isn't here, I'm going to say them all.
You had 2 that I almost said as well.
Yeah, there was a few that I was like, these are just funny, so I have to mention them. But the kind of more serious one was, and I know we talk about these quite a lot, these one-handed catches, but when I was watching the Thursday night football, it was Davante Adams, and he was basically being like shoved around by a corner. And you think there's no way he seems to just be able to get his hand out and grab the ball in time, whilst also being kind of manhandled, shoved out of the way, pushed over. And I was like, I don't think many of the receivers, apart from Davante Adams, would have managed to grab the ball.
I think there's one other guy that's just as good at one-handed catches as Davante Adams. I think DeAndre Hopkins is the only other guy that might have caught that one-handed.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just, as I say, we've talked about quite a few this season, but that one I just thought, the acrobatic ones, they look awesome down the sideline, but this was just like that. I don't think there's many that would have been able to do what he did on Thursday. I was very impressed. Mm-hmm. So one of the ones that made me chuckle the most was Russell Wilson trying to Willie Gay after he had that interception. I mean, he made the world's worst effort and kind of just pinged off him a little bit, touched his leg and just fell on the floor. It was just hilarious. I loved watching that. Yeah, and then because we discussed this a few weeks ago, I think it was one of Paul's rewind.
It was my Foster Moreau.
Was it your one where he knocked him over?
Yeah.
Did you see the Debo one this week?
I did. I almost made it mine, but I'd already done Foster Moreau like 2 weeks ago, so that I can't do it again.
I watched that and I was like, this makes me laugh. And we mentioned it a few weeks ago that I have to put it in. But he didn't even try to help him up. He'd literally knocked him over, knew that he'd done it, stepped straight over him, and then was like, "Way, I got a TD." He had
like a real aggressive step over him. Like he didn't like the guy.
I know, that poor guy. I felt really sorry for him, but it made me chuckle only because we discussed a similar one the other week, and I thought, oh, Debo, it's a bit mean.
I know.
Shall we go to our rapid recap and discuss the best of the rest? So, Mags, look at you. This was actually quite a fun one. You had the Texans versus the Cowboys.
Yeah, this was a really fun one, a bit of a weird one. The Texans going for the unheard of quarterback by committee route. I mean, that was very, very strange. There was a different quarterback in every couple of plays, and it almost worked. Like, they almost ended up beating the Cowboys, but in the end, the Texans are just crap, right? They're like, I think they got an interception and it became an automatic 1st and goal with 5 minutes left in the first quarter. And they were already 3 up and they still lost. I mean, what are we doing here? Just absolutely terrible. Don't score a single point on that. Like, could have taken a field goal. Just, no, terrible, terrible play from them. And yeah, they're just never going to win games whenever they don't have like any kind of weapons, really. The defense is kind of coming along a little bit, I suppose, but they're a bad, bad team. There's a lot of work to do there. For the Cowboys, they just kind of didn't click, really. I do like the Zeke and Pollard combo, though. That's quite nice. And there was a really, really nice hit on poor Michael Gallup, who can't catch a break. That was one nice thing the Texans did. Jonathan Owens, Michael Gallup had a catch secured, and he got absolutely crunched in the back. And, you know, if it was any other team, you would think, oh, maybe this is a bit of momentum, and the Texans will go on to win this game. But the Cowboys just scored the next play, and the Texans lost. So Texans are, I think, locked on to be the number 1 pick of the draft. I think they're probably going to take Bryce Young, and Bryce Young's probably just going to get annihilated because they've got no offensive line. So I feel sorry for Bryce Young already.
No, that's what I always find really upsetting. Like, these awesome QBs end up going into really shitty situations, and they just have no chance.
If it is, if I'm seriously worried, if it was CJ Stroud, I'd be less worried because he's a bigger guy. But Bryce Young's like a tiny little guy, and he's going to get crushed if he goes there. I'd be seriously considering not taking him, but he seems to be the odds-on favorite. I would just feel a little bit sorry for him if he ends up there.
Yeah, I do. I always have thought about this. I wonder how many QBs taken by rubbish teams in the first round have had their careers ruined because they've gone to these terrible teams, so they lose confidence, they don't necessarily get the good coaching, and they end up being a bust. I wonder how many wouldn't have been had they gone to a decent situation. It is a real shame for some of them. I actually thought Fields was going to be one of those, but they seem to have managed to turn it around, which is nice for him, but I thought he was going to end up being one of those. So I watched my Bengals beating the Browns.
Yes.
Which I think it was 23-10. So up until this game, Joe Burrow was 0-4 against the Browns.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, isn't it? Which it was 2 lots of Baker Mayfield and a Jacoby Brissett, which is really upsetting because none of them are particularly amazing QBs. So finally he got his revenge and he's now 1-4. Hurrah. It wasn't a pretty win, but it was a win all the same. That makes me happy. I did think Voldemort was played a little better this week than on his first outing, but that's all I'll say on him. I have to say the Bengals did an awesome job at stopping the run. I think Nick Chubb had about 23 yards or something between 20 and 30.
So important. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that really, obviously, Voldemort's not quite up and ready to go yet. So by stopping Chubb, that really helped to kind of slow that offense down. So I think that really helped. But I do think the Browns do have kind of a bit of our Achilles heel, and I think they do some things that make things a bit challenging for us. But we beat them, we got the win. I've now got my eye on trying to win the AFC North. Come on, Lamar is out. Yeah. Didn't we lose his backup as well to concussion or something? So I'm just wanting a couple of losses for them so that we can get that.
I think, Well, I'm going to talk about the Ravens in a bit, so I think you'll have some positive things to say. Yeah,
I'm just pleased that we seem to be shaping up like we're getting our momentum at the right time.
Again.
We were really terrible at the beginning of the season, and we're just kind of kicking into gear now. We have had some injuries, which I'm a bit worried about, but let's see how we go over the next kind of few weeks.
Yeah, how's T. Higgins? What's happened with him?
Yeah, he's gone out with his hammy, hasn't he? He was on the injury report before this game. So and he had a few weeks off earlier in the season. So I'm hoping it's not too terrible. The other problem is that Tyler Boyd's gone out with a finger injury too. So at the minute, we've only got Jamar. Thankfully, we've got Jamar. But we just see whether we can cobble things together. And we lost Trey Hendrickson, our defensive end, our best defensive end, to a fractured wrist. So he's going to be out for a bit.
You got the mini Hayden Hurst there, Erwin, right?
Oh, yeah. He's doing some great things, actually.
Yeah, he looks good.
Hopefully he can fill the hole of T. Higgins.
Yeah. Oh, God.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. No, good luck, mate.
So what did you think of Thursday Night Football, Mags?
Right. How did this happen? Like, the Rams beating the Raiders, like, the momentums were both, like, the Raiders won, like, 4 in a row. The Rams had lost, like, 4 in a row. Every bone of my body was thinking, well, the Raiders are obviously going to win. Because that's just huge momentum going one way and huge momentum going the other way. I don't know how the Raiders end up losing to a Rams team that don't have their sort of 3 main star players at the minute. And their 4th star player, Jalen Ramsey, is having a tantrum every 5 minutes. And they still end up beating the Raiders. I mean, that's not a good look for Derek Carr. It's not a good look for the coaching staff there. I mean, maybe the defense needs a bit of work, but I mean, they still have people like Max Crosby that they're still wrecking games. I think, I don't know what the Raiders need. I don't know if they need a new quarterback, if they need a new coach, if there are other kind of unseen things missing, like on the offensive line or something, but the Raiders need to make some changes. I'm not sure what it's going to be. The Rams are going to be bad for a while now. That's kind of the sacrifice they made. They won the Super Bowl. They'll be delighted. Interestingly enough, the Rams pick that the Lions have now is like pick number 3 or 4, right? The Lions could end up getting that defense even more sort of sorted out with Aiden Hutchinson using that pick, getting someone like what's the guy called Anderson, who looks really, really good at Alabama. So that could be interesting for the who? for the Lions. Sorry, I'm getting. I almost said the Rams there, but I thought no, the Rams don't have the pick. It's the Lions. That's going to be interesting for them. But yeah, bit shocking for me.
Yeah.
What did you have? You're the Jags and the Titans, did you? That was a pretty good game, right?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it actually.
Yeah.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence absolutely balled out in this one,
Yeah.
which I really love to see because, like we were just literally talking about, I thought he was going to end up with being one of those first-round picks that went into a terrible situation that just didn't realize their full potential, because we know how much of a kind of he was like this. Trevor Lawrence, amazing quarterback,
It was
best
like
one ever.
Andrew Luck. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then he came in, ended up with, forget his name, that got sacked. Anyway,
Urban Meyer. Oh,
absolutely, Urban Meyer.
yeah.
And it was just an absolute shit show. And I thought, this is the end of Trevor Lawrence. You know, they've totally ruined him. But the last few weeks, he's really got into his stride, and it's really great to see. The Jags knew that the Titans had this awesome run defense, so they just didn't run the ball. And Trevor threw it loads of times, and he did an awesome job. And I just really enjoyed watching him playing really well. The Jacksonville D, I thought, looked really good at the beginning of the season. They dropped off for most of the rest of the season. But this week, I thought they made the big plays when they needed to. They got turnovers, which really just helped the Jags kind of cement this win.
Yeah.
The Titans are struggling again. You know, they've really kind of battled through this season and won quite a few games, more than I would have predicted again. But they're starting to struggle again a bit now, I think. And I think the fact that they haven't got any of these big-time wide receivers is really kind of showing. Derrick Henry is doing his best, but there's only so much he can do. He's getting older now. You know, he's not quite as kind of he can't carry everybody on his back as much as he used to be able to.
No.
And we know they've now got rid of their GM because they saw what AJ Brown did to them, wishing that they've still got him. You know, they need someone like him back in the fold, really. So I think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to get very far because I think they're just not quite complete, are they?
They'll lose to the Bengals in the first round again, right?
Yeah, come on.
Yes.
So you got the other AFC North matchup then, Mags, which was the Ravens versus the Steelers. That didn't look great fun, but what did you think?
No, not really. I mean, the Ravens have got clear strengths on, you know, the defensive side of the ball with like Queen and Roquan Smith and Peters, and so many like just big playmakers on that side of the ball, which is great. But then on the other side, I mean, they're obviously missing Lamar Jackson, but there's just nobody to throw to at all. Demarcus Robinson, who probably shouldn't even be in the NFL. I don't know how he's still playing. He's been crap forever, and he's still crap, but he's playing for the Ravens. And then he was the most targeted receiver they had. The second most targeted receiver in this game was Deshaun Jackson, who's so old. Deshaun Jackson is so old. When he made his debut in the NFL, George Pickens and Jameson Williams were 8.
Yeah.
That's
one of those terrible age jokes, but it's true.
It's crazy. Like, he's 36 years old and a wide receiver. How is that the best that you got? I know they've got injuries, but you can't go far with that. They need to really address the wide receiver position and not a half-ass pick like they have been doing the last couple of drafts. They kind of been going, let's maybe take a Rashad Bateman, or let's maybe take this guy. They need to really address it. They need to get a quality receiver brought in. They had a quality receiver in Marquise Hollywood-Brown, and they got rid of him. So I don't know what they're playing at. They're not going to go that far, I don't think, if they don't have those receiving weapons. But J.K. Dobbins coming back, I think, will be massive. Because last year they really struggled with no running backs being available. Dobbins was out, obviously. He came back today. 120 yards and a touchdown. That'll be huge for the Ravens going forward, I think. So nice to see him back, but they really need to address that wide receiver position. And Hannah, you had a game I was really looking forward to. The Chargers up against the Dolphins. What do you think about that? Yeah,
do you know what? I do think, like, it didn't quite live up to the hype. Like, I thought the billing was like Herbert versus Tua. Yeah, it's going to be a massive game. And it was fine, but it wasn't one that I sat down and thought, this is great. I'm really loving it. I do think it was a nice game for the Chargers. It seems, they had been struggling a bit recently. That offense was kind of a bit stale, a bit slow, wasn't really doing a lot. But obviously, we know he had all of his playmakers back. So Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Josh Palmer were all together. And I think up until this point, all three of them on the field has been like a maximum of 12 snaps or something this season.
That's crazy.
So they have been missing their playmakers, which may well have made, a difference and meant that they've not been able to do what they want to do. But they haven't been great. And it's nice to see them doing a bit more, and just Herbert being able to showcase what he really can do, because we know how good a quarterback he is, but I just don't think he's been able to show that this year, whether that be through injuries or the play calling or whatever it was. But I thought he got a chance on Sunday Night Football to kind of show what he could do. But looking at the other side, this Dolphins offense has been in a bit of a slump the last couple of weeks.
It has.
They've been so explosive and fun to watch, this whole season, but it's kind of caught up to them a little bit. I think, teams and defenses are kind of sussing out where their weak spots are now, and they're managing to kind of shut down their kind of all of their explosive energy. And so not all of it, they're still getting the odd kind of explosive play, but earlier in the season, it was explosive play after explosive play. It's like touchdown, long throw, no. They've just not been able to do that. And I do think Tua has been struggling as well. It wasn't his last night. I think, this whole Herbert versus Tua, who is better, no. I think Herbert showcased his kind of his true talent last night. I'm not saying Tua isn't good, but I do think Herbert has a bigger range of skills. So it wasn't Tua's best night, and I'm just interested to see what this Dolphins kind of offense does over the next kind of few weeks to kind of try and get back on track. Because if they keep losing, they're going to start to drop themselves out of the playoff spots. Other teams are starting to kind of push in there. So we'll see how we go. They'll probably still make it, but they just need to be a bit careful and try start winning again anyway. So shall we move forward and have a look at week 15, see what our predictions are this week?
Yeah.
So shall we have a quick look at Paul's? So
let's go through Paul's.
I gave Paul his predictions this week. So his first game is going to be the Dolphins versus the Bills. And I asked him who wins and who has more passing yards, Tua or Josh Allen. So he's going for a Bills win, and he thinks Josh Allen will have more passing yards than Tua.
Okay.
Which is interesting. See how that goes. His second game will be the Patriots versus the Raiders. So I asked him who would win, and would Josh Jacobs get over or under 140.5 rushing yards. He thinks that the Patriots will win, and then he's randomly put Rhamondre Stevenson. So
all right, well that's wrong.
Yeah. So already
he's not getting 4 next week. Yeah, already 1 wrong. That's a record, right?
Absolutely. So he's clearly rule 101, always read the question properly. Clearly not done that. So sorry, Paul, you lose. You're going to get that one incorrect, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So Max, should we have a look at your ones?
Yeah,
so your first game is the Lions versus the Jets. I think this could be quite fun,
Yeah, I think so.
Tell me who wins, and will Mike White have over or under 295.5 passing yards?
Yeah, can't wait for this one. I think the Lions are going to scrape it just, and I'm going to go for the under on the passing yards.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what his ribs are going to be like, but there might be chances out, so you probably will still get that one right. And your second one, Mags, was Falcons versus the Saints. So tell me who wins, and will Desmond Ridder get over or under 1.5 interceptions? I'm
going to go with the Saints, and I'm actually going to go for the over. And I'll give you your two quite quickly. You got Eagles Bears. Who wins? Who's got more rushing yards? Fields or Hurts?
So I'm going to say Eagles, and I'm actually going to go Fields because that is his main skill set. So I think he's going to go there.
I would have said the same, I think. And your second one is the Titans against the Chargers. Who's going to win? And do you think any receiver is going to go over 100 yards?
So I'm going to say Chargers win. And I don't think any receiver is going to go over 100 yards. It's a close one, but I think they're probably going to spread it out a bit more. So I'm going to say no. So that brings us to the end of our show. It's been great reviewing week 17. Don't forget to subscribe and find us on Twitter at Wildcard Rewind. And we will see you next week.
Say